greenhouse practices. Right now we are out at a local tree farm outside of Gainesville. It's a newer tree farm. They are just starting to dig some trees. There's a lot of them here, very big, and they are still learning a little bit, some different practices, things they could do to keep quality plant material from the start all the way to the finish. As you can see right here, this is a row of river birch that they were originally planted correctly apart, but they've gotten so large and they have not been very proactive with moving them correctly that they have grown to be rather close together, and that will definitely start to shade out the interior leaves of some trees all the way down. As you can see, they're just extremely large. They should probably, if you start cutting down some of the poor material and cull out some things to free up some room. That way they don't turn, good #1 trees into #2 quality because they have been just shadowed out over time. It's getting to that point right now with these river birch. This farm have done a lot of great things, but they've also done some things that they could definitely improve on when it comes to mainly their plant quality. This video here and this portion of the video isn't really going to talk too much on the establishment because this is not an urban landscape at all. So this is mainly going to focus on just better keeping the quality material, that way that when it does get out in the urban landscape, it will have a lot better chances of being a better tree and ultimately remaining alive for a long portion of time. One thing I have noticed a little bit with some trees around here are the planting depths. So these trees are all irrigated, but I do think that these trees are a little bit deep. As you can see, I've scraped off at least 3 to 4 inches of soil before I got to any type of root flare. And this here is a shoe-marred oak, so it's going to want to be started at the root flare when it's first planted. So when it's put in the ground, probably as a 3-gallon plant, it was put in a little deep. As you can see, it hasn't hindered it too much, but if we were to ultimately take this tree out of the ground completely and be able to wash all their dirt off, we could probably find some circling roots. As a result of that, possibly you see all these little adventitious roots that have popped up very close to the top of the soil. Oaks like to do this a lot. This can create root defects, which can become problems later on in life, 10, 15 years down the road, with girdling roots that can hinder water uptake. Let's see what else we can find around here. Pruning has been the main focus right now. There has not been a lot of pruning these past few years. They haven't really known how to do it too much. So that's what they're really focusing on. A lot of these trees just have a lot of co-dominant leaders. Very straight, not too thick. At least in a nursery setting here, they have clipped the trunk too early, in my opinion. Cleaning the trunk too early, studies have shown that it's not a problem, you just won't get the amount of growth when it comes to caliper size, which can help beef the tree up some. So they should have left all this material here and limbs on, at least up to about 3 inches in caliper. So they could have done that. Those trees right here are maple trees. Look like either some autumn blaze or summer reds, not sure which one. They look very similar. Cypress look good, pretty much. Cypress are very, at least in the nursery aspect, are very easy to grow. Low maintenance. When you get in an urban landscape, they're also very tolerant, low maintenance, can stand in, as you can see, long periods of time with a lot of water, so they can be put very good for retention ponds, low areas that hold water for a very long time. It's actually drizzling right now. And now you can tell they planted that plant right there was probably, or hopefully, purposely planted in this area of the farm because of the downward slope and how it does gather water. No other part of the farm is this low and keeps water for this amount of time. Now these elms here, as you can see, this is the pruning, is not very good, and these trees are nowhere near what they should look like. These are Ali elms right here. They're more of a very large running tree when it comes to their limb structure, and they could be pruned a lot harder to create more of a ball effect and keep that tree very tight and consistent. These trees are starting to also as well start to shade each other out, and because they got close together and have not been moved, in addition with the plant's natural growth habit and the fact that there's two trees right here on the side of this middle lolly elm are so close together that it's just pushing limbs up even more to grow straight up, and instead of creating lateral growth, which is what we need. Now, when it comes to plant establishment and plant longevity, as you can see, this oak here has been there for a long time. You can see this really large bark inclusion right here. So that can also be somewhat tailored and taken back. Obviously this tree wasn't in a nursery setting before, it's probably naturally growing here, but keeping consistent with this nursery setting, keeping codominant limbs cut out or reduced can help plant establishment and longevity. As a arboriculturist, they like to see codoms, if it's too large, reduced down to a lateral, or taken out completely if it can, if it's not too large. So one thing with these oaks that have been trying to emphasize a lot on is taking out these codominants. And even though this is a nursery setting and it's mainly just, that focus is mainly for just the overall look and aesthetic appeal, we want to have that large, wide look with a single dominant stem coming out the top. Most of these trees have that, but there's also a lot of codominant leaders up in the top that, if they were left in there, which they probably will be if we can't get them out in time, will turn into very, very big codominant stems 20 years from now in these oaks. Another problem with this oak here, as we had mentioned before, I scraped some dirt out around here. This oak, as you can see, is at least 4 to 5 inches deep. I haven't even got to a root flare at all on this oak tree, so there's no telling how deep the root flare is. There's no root flare on any of these oak trees, and for one, this can start a little bit of rot on the trees. Obviously that's not going to affect it now, and possibly when these trees get taken out of this farm and planted into an urban landscape, street roads, sidewalks, wherever they're going to, that the landscapers will be proactive with scraping off this topmost dirt, finding the root flare, and then properly planting it into the setting. All these trees look decently good in my opinion. I know, as when it comes to these trees are very healthy right now. They are on a regular watering schedule, fertilizer. This is an active farm, so there's just a few things that they got to tweak that way that their plant quality can remain good, and they're not having to replace material when it gets out in the landscape because they're not correctly, problems aren't correctly identified and taken care of, even from the first day it comes to the farm, probably as a 3-gallon plant. Over here are some smaller oaks, some cutting or seedlings that have been planted. They need to be staked. Oaks are notorious for getting crooks and runners and stuff, and they need to be staked. Some smaller ones here. Now let's see what planting depth is on this. So this is rather deep as well. As you can see here, we got some roots here to the top. So it's not extremely bad. Decent root structure. All roots have, these oaks have roots galore, so I'm not going to worry about them not growing roots at all. But one thing I have noticed on some of their smaller stuff, that they clean the trunk a little too early, and that studies have shown that if you leave it on, you'll get at least 3/4 of an inch more of caliper growth, proportional ratio to the canopy size, if you leave limbs on this trunk, because it helps with aspect ratio of the limb compared to the trunk, and the growth rings on the limb, they get overtaken by the trunk growth rings, and they proportional to each other. So if you just completely cut off growth here, you're gonna slow down growth in these areas because it's not having to compete with limb structure. So later on, we'll be finding some problems in the nursery setting when it comes to potting, and also we will be identifying some urban landscape problems and potential disasters that could happen when it comes to planting size, rooting, placement of trees, sidewalks, curbs, things like that, that's going to hinder. So we'll talk about that later. Alright, here we are out here at the Bartram. It is a newly renovated apartment complex right here in Gainesville, and this whole north side of the building, they have been putting a lot of material in and installing trees, shrubs, flowers, the whole 9 yards. As you're going to see what we can find out around here, what the practices they've been using. So you can see they planted this Washingtonian up here, and it's getting a little bit of dieback and decline. Those bottom fronds are you normally going to do that when they do that? They've got the wells put in, the berms, which they can take. Got some pittosporum, maybe looks like some muhly grass put in. But I wanted to mention right here a technique they use. They've got this very large magnolia, which is a very beautiful tree, in a big wide open space right here. And then they put a magnolia here, which is going to eventually get big. It's not a problem right now. They've got it right here, right up against the wall, right next to some crepe myrtles. So that could potentially be an issue for establishment. Placement, wrong place right here, I believe. I don't think putting trees, I know sometimes there's code and spec'd out and it's just got to do what you got to do, but you know, in a perfect world you probably wouldn't want to put a magnolia here. Another issue here is magnolias don't need a lot of water, and they built these berm here, as you can see, with pine bark, and that's going to hold in a lot of water. As long as it doesn't keep standing water there for a long period of time, they won't lose this magnolia. They've got a lot of oleander planted here. I can see some dieback on here because these oleander caterpillars they have going on, they haven't sprayed. So they've got this Chinese fringe bush, some loropetalum. Now hopefully they planted a lot of this oleander around this new site here, so hopefully this is the dwarf variety. It's going to stay a lot smaller for them, a little bit less maintenance applied. These big palm trees look good here. Another wrong placement for a big magnolia tree, I believe, also with the berm, and it's in a horrible place to have to replace, is behind all these boxes here. Right in here, they planted this tree here, literally within 6 feet of the wall. So if that tree ever takes off and then becomes all up in the wall here, it's going to block a lot of views of balconies and stuff. So that could probably be changed out. Could have been spec'd differently, but that's just keeping people informed of what's good or what's not. So you come around this side here. They've got a lot of older material that's already been planted here. Actually, you can see they're working on some stuff right now. Probably going to be installing some turf here, I would say. Just doing a project. See what you can find out around here. Got these big trees posted right up along the side of this building here. So I don't really believe that that's a good place for them. These crepe myrtles are all up in these power lines. Could have been moved over to the right, probably 6 foot. Now they're keeping water, and they have irrigation installed on all this stuff. They have, looks like they have some 3-foot nozzle heads that looks like what they're planning on using as future irrigation when they turn off on all these hoses and excess sprinklers they have. They just have a lot of material here that I think is just way too much, way too clumped. It's gonna, when everything starts getting more established and overgrown, you've got these power lines of these oak trees that are right up next to them. They've got young yapoons right next to some, probably look like some older ones. Hopefully these are the dwarf ones, gonna be able to, people from the balcony be able to see the road and the roadway, and they're not gonna be as much of a maintenance hindrance. It's a good technique over there with the palm tree. They have a big berm set up over there for it, and it looks like it's not giving them too much dieback. I'm not sure how long ago it was planted. Over there, we got some right here is a prime example, and I believe the wrong tree for the wrong place. 2 6-inch tree for oak trees, right here on the sidewalk, this entrance of this gate here, this door, 5 feet from a power line, and they're already touching each other. Now what are those trees going to do when they get older? They're just going to probably be hacking them off completely to the side, like they have that oak tree down there, right along this power line to keep stuff off the power line. So I think that's just a horrible place for it. These holly here's planted in a container pot, I can tell. Looks like they planted them correctly. They should have probably cut and shaved the root ball off. Got some real good root growth, because that container, hopefully it wasn't root bound when it was put in. It's got a lot of organic material in there already, so when that dies out, that's going to create hindrances with it falling over, possibly because it's going to be really hot. So to see there's examples of a landscape that can probably be changed, practices can be changed differently to help maintain health and maintenance in the future. It doesn't seem to have its own irrigation bubbler or anything like that, or micro irrigator spitter. It's just on these pop-up spitters, these pop-up sprinklers here. Looks like everything was planted in a container pot, except for probably these oak trees were definitely not in a container. They're planted at the right height. They look good. A lot of competition. Sidewalk right here. Hopefully that's not going to mess the sidewalk up for future years, which it probably will with these really big roots, pop-up stuff. Oh, there are small irrigation heads here. And then they planted this ligustrum literally within the canopy of the tree itself. I don't see why that should be there, period, whatsoever. That's just horrible, in my opinion. There's just a lot of material, way too much stuff here. I mean, it's gonna look good now. Different color variations, backdrops. They could have probably just put a very low-growing hedge all the way down the side of the building. That way, you got some color there. It's gonna stay low for people's windows and stuff. They can see outside, but there's just a lot of stuff here that probably gonna die out. They've got these little flowers here. I'm actually not too sure what these are. Some ground cover that's mixed in with this lantana, looks like. So this is gonna grow in very nice. I'm guessing this is gonna be the dwarf version of it. So there's just some other things here. The problems we're facing here is wrong placement, wrong material, very old oak tree that's just been hacked on forever that looks horrible. I hate to see an oak tree like that just completely demolished. There's no reason for it to be there in the first place. I love trees, but they need to be put in the right space with the right area and the right spacing around them. That way they can be fully established, get there, not have any competition or anything like that. So mainly just planting looks good here. Just the placement of everything looks okay. And hold on one second. So as you can see right here, these sprinklers have probably been run for God knows how long. There's no turf here. I'm not sure what they actually expect to do. Probably replace the turf at some point, but hopefully this water, they'll have the water drain out a little bit better because it's already holding a lot of water, and they've obviously got to replace it with St. Augustine turf, which can't be extremely wet, but it can take a decent amount of water. So hopefully they maybe remedy the problem, that issue with the turf. Hi, we're out here today again at the greenhouses, and I'm going to show you guys a few things on plant quality and some establishment. Right here we have a poinsettia. We have a crop of poinsettias here, and we have a plant that has pretty well been established very well in this pot. This plant is about two and a half weeks old, so we got some good root systems coming out here. One proper technique that has been real hard to control now in this environment is the fact that there's a lot of algae growing on the top of these plants because it's just been so moist and it's been real rainy out, even though these plants haven't been watered too frequently. So that is one thing that we're dealing with out here in the greenhouses, is this moisture. This plant here is dried out very well, but it's obviously spacing is going to be one thing that we're going to have to be fighting here when these plants get bigger, because they will start to get elongated and real crowded, and then won't create a high quality plant like we're looking for. We want it to be very compact in certain size pots. These 6.5 inch pots here are what we're trying to finish at about 16 to 18 inches tall. So that's one thing that we're dealing with here in the greenhouses. We have some larger poinsettias over there, but there's just different environmental factors that come into play that keep these plants very nice looking. Trying to keep the wind down here on the sides. These sides come down, so that's another thing that we're